When Dustin Hoffman first burst onto the screen in The Graduate, 1967, he didn't look or act like the typical Hollywood leading man. He was short, unconventional, and raw, but his performance was electrifying, ushering in a new era where talent mattered more than looks. Over the next decades, Hoffman became one of the greatest actors of his generation, with unforgettable roles in Midnight Cowboy, Tootsie, and Rain Man. Yet behind the Oscars, acclaim, and fame, there was always a darker, more complicated story unfolding. As Hoffman now stands at 88, his journey is both inspiring and heartbreaking, marked by health battles, personal scandals, and the loneliness that often shadows even the brightest stars. His story proves that no amount of success can shield a person from the tragedies of life, and his reflections in old age reveal a man who has lived at the highest peaks but also endured some of the deepest valleys. Long before Dustin Hoffman became a Hollywood icon, he was a shy and insecure boy growing up in Los Angeles. His parents weren't part of the film industry, and his early years were marked by self-doubt and struggles to fit in. Hoffman admitted that he never saw himself as handsome or talented, and it was this lack of confidence that pushed him toward acting, ironically, the one profession that forced him into the spotlight he feared. He studied at the Pasadena Playhouse alongside Gene Hackman, where both men were told they would never make it in Hollywood. That rejection only fueled his determination, and by the mid-1960s, he had made his way to New York, struggling in theater roles while barely making ends meet. This period of struggle gave Hoffman a lifelong empathy for outsiders, shaping the way he approached his characters. Yet even as he rose to stardom, the insecurities of his childhood never fully left him, haunting him throughout his personal and professional life. When Mike Nichols cast Hoffman in The Graduate, it was a gamble that paid off beyond anyone's expectations. Suddenly, Dustin was everywhere, the awkward, unlikely hero of a film that captured the spirit of a generation. Overnight, he went from a struggling actor to an international star, his face on posters, his name in lights. But fame came with its own struggles. Hoffman later confessed that the sudden spotlight terrified him, as he never felt comfortable with the idea of being a celebrity. He wanted to be respected for his craft, not adored for his image, and this tension followed him throughout his career. While The Graduate gave him the platform to choose challenging roles, it also created an image he could never fully escape. Fans wanted Benjamin Braddock, the charming outsider, but Hoffman wanted to dig deeper into the flawed, difficult, and broken characters that mirrored his own insecurities. It was this push and pull between audience expectations and his artistic drive that shaped much of his career, and his personal struggles with fame. After The Graduate, Hoffman went on a streak of performances that defined American cinema. From Midnight Cowboy to Kramer vs. Kramer and Rain Man, his ability to disappear into roles made him one of Hollywood's most admired actors. He won 2 Academy Awards and countless other honors, building a career that aspiring actors still study today. But behind the awards was a man plagued by self-doubt and perfectionism. Hoffman often clashed with directors, demanding endless retakes and questioning every decision, which earned him a reputation as both a genius and a difficult collaborator. His perfectionism came from fear of failure, fear of not living up to expectations, and fear of being exposed as a fraud. These fears strained his relationships, both professional and personal, and while they fueled some of his best performances, they also left him isolated. The tragedy of Hoffman's career was that even at the height of his success, he rarely felt the joy that others assumed must come with it. While Dustin Hoffman's professional life was filled with accolades, his personal life was often stormy. He married twice and had 6 children, but his dedication to acting and the constant demands of Hollywood took a toll on his relationships. His first marriage ended in divorce, leaving emotional scars that lingered for years. Even in his second marriage, which lasted much longer, Hoffman admitted to struggling with the balance between career and family. His perfectionism and intensity, which made him so successful on screen, often spilled into his personal life, creating tension at home. Hoffman has openly acknowledged that he wasn't always the husband or father he wanted to be, and those regrets weigh heavily on him now in old age. The tragedy of his personal story lies in the sacrifices made for his art. Sacrifices that brought him greatness professionally, but loneliness and regret privately. As Dustin Hoffman grew older, the weight of his lifestyle began to catch up with him. In 2013, he revealed that he had successfully undergone cancer treatment, though he never disclosed the type. While he survived, the battle was a sobering reminder of mortality for a man who had always lived through his work. Aging brought other challenges too: less energy, fewer roles, and the painful reality of watching his peers pass away one by one. Friends and colleagues who once defined his world, like Gene Hackman and Robert Duvall, slowly stepped away from the spotlight or left it altogether. For Hoffman, the man who once thrived on the intensity of set life, slowing down felt like a loss of identity. At 88, his health is stable, but frailty has replaced the vibrancy of his youth, leaving fans worried each time his name resurfaces in the news. His health struggles symbolize the inevitable decline that even Hollywood legends cannot escape. In 2017, Dustin Hoffman's legacy was shaken when multiple women accused him of sexual misconduct dating back decades. The allegations shocked fans who had long admired him, casting a shadow over his career and reputation. Hoffman denied some claims and downplayed others, but the damage to his image was undeniable. Once celebrated as a groundbreaking actor, he was suddenly at the center of the #MeToo movement's reckoning with Hollywood's past. For many, this became the most tragic chapter of his life, not just the accusations themselves, but the way they tainted a career that had once seemed untouchable. Hoffman's silence and retreat from public life in the years since suggests that the controversy left him deeply affected. At 88, he lives with a legacy that is no longer viewed solely through the lens of his art but also through the lens of these unresolved allegations, complicating how future generations will remember him. Despite the controversies, there is no denying Dustin Hoffman's influence on modern acting. His performances reshaped what it meant to be a leading man, opening doors for actors who didn't fit the classic mold of Hollywood glamour. Yet Hoffman himself has admitted that much of his career was driven by insecurity, not confidence. In interviews, he has confessed to feeling like an imposter even after winning 2 Oscars, haunted by the idea that he didn't deserve his success. At 88, he reflects with both pride and regret: pride for the art he created and the lives he touched, but regret for the personal sacrifices, the controversies, and the relationships that suffered along the way. For Hoffman, the tragedy of his story is not just in the mistakes or the aging process, but in the knowledge that even the greatest achievements cannot erase the weight of regret. His influence is secure, but his peace of mind remains fragile. Today, Dustin Hoffman lives a much quieter life, away from the cameras that once defined his every move. The actor who once thrived in the spotlight now spends most of his time in private, appearing rarely at public events. Reports suggest that he enjoys time with his family, but the energy and presence that once made him magnetic have naturally faded with age. For fans, the sight of Hoffman looking frail is heartbreaking, a reminder that time spares no one. His retreat from public life also reflects the lingering impact of the controversies that marked his later years. At 88, the man who once commanded entire audiences with his voice and presence now lives in near silence, remembered more through his films than through his current life. It is this contrast, the vibrant, unstoppable Hoffman of the past and the quiet, aging man of the present, that makes his story so poignant. For Dustin Hoffman, part of the tragedy of aging has been watching his generation of actors slowly fade away. Once surrounded by contemporaries like Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, and Jack Nicholson, Hoffman now belongs to a shrinking circle of legends who defined an era. Each obituary of an old friend or colleague is another reminder of mortality, another weight added to the passage of time. At 88, Hoffman faces the reality of being one of the last standing from Hollywood's great New Hollywood movement of the 1970s. This awareness deepens his reflections on life, making him more nostalgic but also more burdened by the knowledge that time is running out. Fans feel this heartbreak too, as they witness the twilight years of an actor who once seemed eternal on screen. The tragedy lies not only in his own aging but in the fading of an entire era that shaped modern cinema. Despite the tragedies, controversies, and regrets, Dustin Hoffman's body of work remains untouchable. Films like The Graduate, Rain Man, and Kramer vs. Kramer continue to inspire actors and audiences alike. For younger generations, these films preserve the Hoffman who was bold, brilliant, and transformative, allowing him to live on far beyond his physical decline. In many ways, his greatest tragedy is also his greatest triumph, that while the man himself may fade, his art will remain immortal. Hoffman has often spoken about the power of storytelling, about how films allow us to understand ourselves and others more deeply. Even at 88, his belief in the transformative power of cinema remains strong. His legacy, then, is not defined solely by his personal struggles but by the timeless characters he brought to life, characters that will continue to resonate for decades to come. At 88, Dustin Hoffman's story is a mixture of triumph and tragedy, of brilliance and heartbreak. He was the outsider who became a legend, the insecure boy who transformed into one of the greatest actors in history. Yet he was also the perfectionist who struggled with relationships, the man haunted by accusations, and the aging star facing the silence of his twilight years. The tragedy of Dustin Hoffman is not a single event but the accumulation of choices, regrets, controversies, and the relentless passage of time. And yet, through it all, his art remains, a reminder that greatness often comes at a cost. Fans who grew up watching him now see him as a frail man of 88, but his films ensure that somewhere, he will always be young, vibrant, and unforgettable. The heartbreak of his life is real, but so too is the legacy he leaves behind, etched forever in the history of cinema.